It's time to rethink, renew, and reimagine retirement. Welcome to Retire Repurposed. This podcast is dedicated to help people transition into fulfilling and purposeful retirements. Retirement is a big life change. In fact, the two most dangerous years of a person's life are the year they were born and the year they retire. We believe that retirement is not the end, rather the beginning of what could be the most impactful season of a person's life. So don't retire, become repurposed. Well, I'm your host, Jared Sebest. I'm the co-founder of Retire Repurposed alongside Ben Tejas. Thank you so much for joining us today. Maybe you're listening to us on the radio. Maybe you found us online. Regardless, head over to iTunes, find our podcast, and click subscribe. Better yet, leave us a quick positive rating and review. If you would just take a moment and do that, we would appreciate that so much. Now, this podcast is all about retirement, but it's not about money. It's about the non-financial parts of retirement, which many times can be even more challenging than the financial. Few people can just flip the switch from working a career 30, 40 plus years, focusing on their wealth, focusing on their retirement, and then shutting it off without methodical steps to living what we call a repurposed retirement. If you want more for your life and your retirement, then you have come to the right place. Well, on this episode, we continue our series on retirement happiness. Society tells us that retirement is the time when we can truly be happy and live, but does retirement make good on that promise? Furthermore, what makes us happy in the first place? Today, we cover what we call the money disorder. We feel too much of the retirement conversation is centered on wealth and money, and as a result, many retirees struggle getting their minds off of their money in retirement. In this podcast, we talk about the dangers of this money disorder, and we give you ways to begin breaking free from this bondage. Enjoy this episode. All right, folks, welcome back to the show. We are going to continue our series on retirement happiness, and we are so glad that you are joining us today. We are going to talk about resolving what we call the money disorder. Last week we had a show on does money buy happiness in retirement? And we're going to kind of continue on this road of talking more on the financial side and kind of the mental health side of retirement. So again, we're so glad you are joining us here today. Just a reminder, join our Facebook group called Becoming Repurposed in Retirement. Go to facebook.com, click join. After you search Becoming Repurposed in Retirement, this is a growing community of people that want something more. They're not content with the typical American dream retirement. Again, this is a growing community of people. Join our group. Go to facebook.com and search Becoming Repurposed in Retirement. Before we get started with today's show, we're going to talk about where we've been kind of on this track with this mini-series. We started a couple episodes ago. We talked about retirement happiness. Really, what is it? What does it even mean? What does the Bible say about happiness versus joy versus contentment versus peace? A couple of weeks ago, then we talked about what is the best age. We looked at research, which again would say that your happiness is high coming into early adulthood, and then it starts to dip around middle age, and then starts to go back up once you approach what we would call, or most people would call, retirement age. We talked about why perhaps that is the case. We had a very spirited discussion there. And then last week we talked about does money buy happiness? Ben Tejas joins me on the show now, and this has been kind of a fun series. Again, lots of times when we start these series, we don't really know what direction exactly it's going to take. But I think we've covered some really important topics that retirees need to hear revolving around this idea of happiness.
Yeah, Jared, I think the last show we had was one of our most listened to and downloaded podcasts we've had, like you said. So I think people need to hear more about this exact topic. And you look at the financial side of happiness and how, that study we shared last week about how, yes, a certain amount of income does create some happiness, right? And making sure our daily needs are met. But then there's that tipping point at which case people oftentimes get almost too much, and then it causes the opposite effect. So I love that. I don't want to be tone deaf, though. I know there are people that listen to our show that are really struggling financially, and they're finding, hey, yes, money would buy me some happiness. So again, that I want to make sure they hear there's hope, right? And I think, I love Dave Ramsey, the work that he's done. I mean, if you're behind the eight ball and you're struggling with debt and you're, very little saved, there is hope. But again, our primary audience that we're talking to are retirees that have some savings, have some wealth built up, and we see the problem many times that they have almost too much.
Right. Yeah, and we're going to get into that deep dive here today. We've cited some particular studies here the last couple of weeks. I posted that data and some charts on our Facebook page. So again, if you're not a part of that group, check it out, because you're going to see some of the data and a lot of the things that we're referring to on these podcasts posted in that Facebook group. Last week we posted a chart and talked about it on the show as well, about how there was a survey done, and it surveyed people in many different income brackets, ranging from $15,000 a year all the way to $500,000 and beyond. And it made them evaluate their own well-being and their own experience on a day-to-day basis, how happy they were. Generally, it was a negative response. People felt they had negative feelings on life and happiness below about $75,000 a year of annual income. After that, they generally became more positive. Again, I'm using the word general because this was a survey done over the course of a lot of people and a lot of time. But I think there is something to be said about the financial aspect. Does money buy happiness? Well, the answer is no. But there is something to be said about having our daily needs met. I mentioned there was a gentleman that said something to the effect of, money doesn't buy happiness, but it does kind of climb us out of desperation. And so kind of going back to what you just said, there are people certainly struggling. Does money buy happiness? No, but there are a number of situations that we have to address when it comes to money in retirement. So just another reminder, if you missed those shows, or any show for that matter, go back, find our podcast on iTunes, click subscribe. I say that every single week, but listen to this content, really good stuff. And if you're a retiree, these are things that you need to understand and need to hear. So today we are continuing the series on the pursuit of happiness, and we are going to talk about resolving the money disorder. Now, right off the bat, many of you maybe have never heard that term before. That's a term that gets thrown around on this podcast a number of times. So Ben, let's just start right there. In a nutshell, what does it mean to you when we use the term money disorder?
Yeah, Jared, I think it comes down to, and that's a term we came up with our own. There's no, I don't believe anybody else that's talking about this specific way to look at how a retiree might feel about their money, but it comes down to, 20 years of working with retirees, something I've seen many times, not everyone, but many times it comes down to, it's more of a feeling of, I'm going to run out of money, and I don't know why I feel that way, but I feel as if I'm going to at some point run out. And, real quick, we're not necessarily talking to people that should be concerned about running out of money, and there are those people. Dave Ramsey has a study, and he's shown that a statistic that 48% of Americans have less than $10,000 saved for retirement. Mm-hmm. We're not talking to those individuals in this specific, terms. A money disorder would be somebody that fears running out of money. They spend way too much time worrying about their money, and really, we know that they shouldn't be. They don't need to, and it perpetuates itself based on what the current market cycle is in, based on what their friends and neighbors are talking about, and they get it becomes more than just a little bit of concern, but it becomes constant worry. Yeah. And that is, I think, the easiest way to explain what we're talking about. And again, the reason I think it's a disorder is because it is not something where they should be feeling that way. Again, if you're somebody that you do not have a sound financial plan, you do not have income that you can count on, then maybe that is something you should be worried about and you should be planning for. But again, these are people that should not be feeling the way they're feeling.
You mentioned it. I was going to ask you about that. What is the overriding emotion that these people feel? You use the word fear. Would that be a fair statement, where fear has crept in too much? Not that, again, we shouldn't have concern. Again, there's a difference between concern, worry, and fear. People that have kind of this quote unquote money disorder, they're leaning way more towards fear than what they need or should be. Would that be a fair statement?
Yeah, it moves beyond healthy concern to just where it starts to take over somebody's thought patterns, right? And it becomes something where somebody cannot remove themselves from daily checking the markets, from daily concerning themselves with many things that they cannot control, that they many times don't have to be concerned about, but yet it dominates really their life and their thought process. And this isn't and if you're listening to this and you're thinking, "Wow, that's not me," and yet you know exactly what the markets are doing today and yesterday, and you actually determine how good you feel about the day. I've had that, Jared. I've had people come into our office and say, I've asked them, "How's your day going?" They say, "I've had a terrible day." Well, why? Well, you saw it. The market's open bad, and it just hasn't been a good day. Well, no, I ask how you're doing, not how the markets are doing. And again, I think that is part of what we see. Again, more than a healthy concern, but more of a constant worry, or where it starts to really cause real problems within your life.
Yeah. In what ways do you think that either society or the financial world, which, by the way, we work in, this is our arena, in what ways have we added to this problem?
Well, I think several ways. I think the society thing, we'll talk about contentment later. But again, we live in a society where you never have enough, right? And we're told over and over and over, we need more, we need more, we need more. So I think that aside, I think the financial world, though, in how we perpetuate the problem would be in, number one, our marketing, the things that we say to people. We do tend to not answer the questions they have very well. We tend to talk over people many times, and people just get confused. I don't think there's enough teaching in our industry to make sure people understand what's really important to them. But again, I think if you begin to, and again, information travels so fast today, you can be on your computer, which everybody has now, right? We all have devices. And you're seeing exactly what the markets are doing, and then you click on a few things, and then you get bombarded because, again, the algorithms want to keep you on their site so they can advertise to you. And again, you see more, and then you see more, and pretty soon it reinforces. We reinforce what you're thinking. We reinforce the fear. We reinforce it. And again, there is a lot of people like, where do I go for a trusted advice that might give me some real truth here? Okay, and I'm not saying that the markets, when they show you those numbers, that's not true. But again, what I'm saying is what you're seeing is, and especially if you get into different financial pundits, and we all are going to talk about the scariest things, that is what I think perpetuates the problem. Again, we want people to be understanding what's going on around them. I mean, don't stick your head in the sand. But again, it's a lot different from a long-term investor who's going to say, I have a certain amount here, and I'm trying to steward this well. In the past, that looked like, I'm going to check with my financial person every so often. Right. I'm going to probably open the newspaper and see what's going on. Right. Today, it becomes morning, afternoon, evening, several times through the day. I'm checking my phone to see what's going on. I think that has perpetuated the problem.
A lot of people know that my background was actually in media, and there was a term that got thrown around a lot as a joke, tongue-in-cheek. We didn't mean this literally, but you probably have heard it yourself. It says, if it bleeds, it leads. Basically saying, if it's the most negative, scariest thing in the world happening today, that's what we're going to go after. And there's a psychological aspect to that. I mean, negativity and fear get people to watch. And so certainly not blaming marketing, not blaming financial institutions, not blaming the news, but they're trying to kind of keep you engaged through fear. And to their defense, they've done a very, very good job of that, certainly. Just a off-the-cuff question, Ben, for you just personally. Do you feel like the retirement conversation, when you think of retirement, you bring up just the word retirement, does it lean too much towards money? Have we made it too much about money more than what it should be or needs to be?
Yeah, absolutely we have. I think you hear the word retirement, you think retirement account. You hear the word work, you don't necessarily think just the money that's being made, do you? Do you talk about your work with people? Do you talk about necessarily how much money you make? You don't. You tend to talk about what you're doing, what you're creating, where you're adding value. But you talk about retirement, you hear the word retirement, it's like, well, how much money do I have saved? And I don't think, 401k, it's not necessarily a bad thing. We need to be concerned, and we need to be with a healthy concern saying, yes, I need to be prepared. But when it becomes more than that, and it becomes part of it, is ruining your daily mood, then that's when I say you may be suffering from what we call a money disorder.
So put yourself in the realm of that retiree who has this, I don't want to say issue, but where they've got too much mental real estate wrapped up into it. Explain to people what the dangers of that, who's missing out. Really, at the end of the day, who's losing because of too much time and energy and mental real estate on money?
Well, everybody around you, right? I mean, we, as retirees, I've seen this firsthand, have so much to offer the world around you, your grandchildren, your spouse, your community, the world. So if we have too much time spent on the focus that society's brought us in retirement on financial products and the markets, everything else, the people that are closest to you lose out first. If your daily mood is not what you think it should be, your spouse is probably noticing it. You are finding that your family probably is noticing it. Again, and that is something that I have seen over and over in the last 20 years.
I would even take it a step further. Like, you're absolutely right. I would agree with you. Like, the people around you are missing out. You personally are missing out, because we believe that retirement should be that the crescendo of life, not this season of life that tails off. And I feel it. I feel like it steals. And again, I've seen it, and I didn't really realize that. Since entering the financial industry, 9 years ago with you, like, it really does steal from people. You think that the money thing is going to set people free. And what I have seen is I've seen alongside you, some of our clients who have more, not only have enough, have more than enough. And because of the mentality by which they look at money, it almost steals from them. It's supposed to give them freedom, and it actually does the opposite. I find that really, really sad and tragic. So not only does the retiree miss out, the loved ones, your loved ones miss out, and the world misses out as well. So I think it's a big deal, and that's why we're spending almost an entire show talking about this. Let's talk about what can people do to resolve it. Okay, so like, we've got this issue, it exists. What do people need to do to kind of get to the other side mentally, Ben, in your opinion?
Well, I think first of all, there's so much wisdom in the Bible, Jared. I think if you're a person of faith or not, you're listening to this today, you can't question the wisdom that's in there. I think the Bible talks about money more than any other subject. I think it's like 2,300 times where the Bible actually references money and possessions. So again, I come from a background of working over 20 years with people and watching how they handle their money and how money can, again, steal from people, if you will. So some of this is just from me. Some of it's from my own personal journey through walking through contentment and learning of what that looks like. Again, so what can you do? I think first and foremost, it starts with coming at this from a place of gratitude. Okay, so again, one of the things that I've noticed with people is that when they lead with gratitude, it starts to break them free of the money disorder. Sure. So instead of looking at what you've lost or what you could have made or what you could have done, look at what you have. If you can start there, okay, you can really come at this money disorder from a place of, okay, I still have a lot. I'm in a good spot. I have more than, most. I mean, living in this country right now, you're some of the wealthiest people in the world, regardless of what you're talking about. So start with gratitude, right? And I think the second, I'll use another G, is giving. So again, how do we break free from this? It's also to not hold on to every dollar as tightly as we can. Picture a dollar bill crumpled up in your fist and just hold it as hard as you can. There's tension, right? There's tension and then you're tight. If you can feel as if just releasing that with your hand, and do that right now, just tightly, unless you're driving, but tightly hold on and make a fist and then just release it. And I think many times just the feeling of saying, okay, this is not mine. I am stewarding this asset, but I can't control it. Okay, when you try to control it, you get tight, you get full of anxiety. So again, if you can do that, you can learn to overcome this money disorder. You can learn it, and again, that's what we're Philippians 4:11. You go back to that verse. Okay, it says, and this is a guy, Paul, in jail, talking, okay? He says, not that I am speaking of being in need, for I have learned in whatever situation I am to be content. He says, I have learned. This is not something that comes natural. This is not something that's easy to do. This is something that's very difficult to find yourself where you say, okay, I have what I need. I'm coming at really my entire life from a standpoint of being content. That's not easy. That society, again, is going to tell us you need more, you need more, you need more. The financial world's probably not going to help. The media is not going to help. But again, if you can start with this gratitude and then giving and then realize that this will not be simple, you will need to learn. Again, I've learned in whatever situation how to be content.
Yeah, Ben, I think that's all like really, really good stuff. But you're really talking about kind of the spiritual, more of kind of the mindset piece of this, which I think is certainly a huge part. And I encourage people to take Ben up on this offer of gratitude and contentment. Let's talk more tactical with money, with regards to what people should be doing with their money. How does this kind of align?
Yeah, so if we can start by shifting our mindset, then we have to move into how should we view money? And I think there's two sides of the coin with money. There always has been. There's the wealth side and the income side. So I look at really wealth as a stockpile. It's like what is saved for future. It's like this this pile of grain. I mean, if you look at it from a like a farmer standpoint, it's in the grain bin. It's there. Okay. I look at income as more of the useful side of money, your daily bread, if you will. So when I try to look at money as a whole, I say there's two sides. There's wealth and there's income. And until we understand the difference between the two, I think we'll still come back and struggle with this money disorder. I think wealth many times actually, if it's mismanaged or it is, certainly looked at through the wrong lens of whose it is, actually causes more unhappiness.
Yeah.
I really feel that it can cause you to actually be more concerned and cause more anxiety and worry.
Yeah, I think that kind of goes back to some of the examples that I kind of mentioned, where you have this wealth and it almost puts you in bondage more than it does set you free. And I think that it shouldn't, and if it is, that should be a major red flag to somebody that has that. And again, I think that the financial world has done a poor job in perpetuating that problem, because we focus so much on the wealth production and maintenance side.
Yeah, we do. And you look at Ecclesiastes 5:11, Jared. As goods increase, so do those who consume them. And what benefit are they to the owner except to feast his eyes on them? Mm-hmm. That's wealth. Yeah. That is like, I need more. The goalpost moves. Success does that to us. Money does that to us. Once I have this, I need that, right? Mm-hmm. Again, you have to differentiate wealth and income. And income, that's the useful side of money. Jared, I have had so many client meetings with people who have pensions and that are happier than you can imagine, because again, they are less worried about the wealth and they have their daily needs met with pension income. And I think if you have a chance to read that chapter in my book, Money Doesn't Buy Happiness, Pensions Do, I talk specifically about this mindset shift. But it's so important, because when you have consistent income that you can count on at a certain time of the month, that is what you've been conditioned for your entire life while working, right? Because you got a paycheck.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, we've seen that in our practice. And again, I don't want to go too deep on the financials, but really that should be the conversations you should be having if you have a retirement professional at hand. It's not about the wealth as it is the income. That's that key mind shift that really has to happen.
Yeah, for sure. And I think some people will come at us and say, well, the wealth's important, for future generations and leaving a legacy. And I think, well, first of all, don't confuse legacy and inheritance. What you're talking about there is inheritance. Inheritance, that's the money your kids get to spend. Legacy is your lasting impact on the people around you. So I think that's a great, we'll move into that maybe in our next show, but we can specifically talk to that person who comes at this idea and says, wealth is still really important because I'm trying to build legacy. Again, it's inheritance. Right. I'm trying to build something for next generation. That's okay if that's your goal. Many retirees today, though, come at it and say, no, I am just looking to make sure that I can live the life I want to live because my kids have more than I ever did. Okay, totally different conversation there. And what you need to focus on, again, is consistent, regular income, because pension money, guaranteed income, money that just hits your bank account a certain day, that spends a whole lot easier than withdrawing, right? Than withdrawing from that pile of wealth that you have stored away.
We've got about 30 seconds left. Would it be fair to say the people that understand those things, they understand the income side, and then they have the regular income, they have a lesser chance of suffering from this, what we call a money disorder?
Oh yeah, for sure. Because again, you are bringing that focus off of that stockpile. Even if you're trying to transfer that to future generations, it's far less important because you remember in the beginning we're holding on so tight. Now it's not yours. You're saying, okay, this is something that, number one, I'm stewarding. for my creator. Number two, my children will probably have it. I have the income I need.
Right.
That just makes that whole anxiety and peace from the money disorder really just disappear.
Well, thank you so much for listening to this episode of Retire Repurposed. Until next time, I'm Jared Sylvester. Remember, don't retire, become repurposed. We'll see you then.
Securities offered through Avantax Investment Services. Member FINRA SIPC. Investment advisory services offered through Avantax Advisory Services. Insurance services offered through an Avantax affiliated insurance agency.